Before we begin, I'd like to address something that I've seen come up far too often in the comments section. Every so often, someone draws attention to the way I pronounce this name, and since I'm going to be pronouncing this name quite a bit in the video you're watching, I figure I may as well clear the air about stuff. The impression certain people seem to be under is that I'm pronouncing this name Ghidorah. I hope now that you've actually heard me pronounce Ghidorah, you can tell the difference between that and Ghidorah. One of them clearly has 2 syllables, the other has 3. See, in Japanese, a 3-syllable word has the first and third syllables emphasized, unlike the second syllable emphasis of English. So while most Western Godzilla fans would pronounce this name Ghidorah, as in Ghidorah the Explorer, now there's a crossover for you, in Japanese, it would be pronounced closer to Ghidorah. I stick closer to that enunciation. And I'm technically not wrong. There is a lesson to be reached here about jumping to conclusions without having all of the evidence first. And speaking of which, that makes a nice segue to the topic of today's video. This particular image has been circling around the internet of late. So, is this King Ghidorah? According to Studio ADI, the answer is a flat no. This tweet claims it is concept art from a video game called Lucifer, which they were floating around 10 years ago, but it never actually came to anything. That is the official word, but it seems like a lot of people aren't buying it. Now I admit, there is quite a resemblance here to King Ghidorah. 3 heads, 2 tails. It's the 2 tails part that really has me wondering, honestly. Normally, a multi-headed dragon either has 1 tail or as many tails as heads. King Ghidorah is one of the few that has 3 heads and 2 tails. The resemblance is uncanny, I have to admit. But here's my question. If this is King Ghidorah, why deny it? You're gonna talk about cover-ups and conspiracies, you have to have a reason for it. So what would the reason be for denying this? I know they're keeping the designs tightly under wraps, but these people aren't idiots. They know that when something has made its way onto the internet, that means the cat's out of the bag. Now sure, you can point to a number of instances where the people involved in a movie were told specifically to misdirect news outlets in order to keep big secrets. A favorite example of mine was how everybody flat out denied for as long as they could that Marion Cotillard was playing Talia al Ghul in The Dark Knight Rises. That was, of course, something a lot of people suspected anyway. However, for most of the period leading up to the release of that film, there was no evidence at all to suggest that she actually was Talia al Ghul, which made it easy to deny. At that point, it was all just speculation. This is a piece of art. That's a bit harder to deny. And if this is authentic Ghidorah art, wouldn't it make more sense for them to just say, well, crud, we have a leak, but I guess there's no denying it? I don't know, something about it just doesn't add up to me. Something else that makes me wonder is the structure of the wings. We've had a lot of fan art up to this point portraying King Ghidorah as a quadruped, crawling around on his wings like a wyvern. The image has been drilled into our heads by now, but it's still fan art. If we look at the cave paintings from Kong Skull Island, they point towards the idea that King Ghidorah will be standing upright as he classically does. Alright, fine, it's a cave painting, it doesn't have a lot of detail. But this is clearly recognizable as Legendary's Godzilla, so if that's true to life, why wouldn't this one be? But that still would leave the lingering question, if this really isn't King Ghidorah, how do you explain the similarities? Well, maybe it's just coincidence. To the artists in my audience, have you ever come up with a design you thought was really cool and original, only to realize later you stole a lot of elements from something else without even realizing it? That could very well be what happened here. Someone on the design team said, hey, I've got a really cool concept for a gold dragon with 3 heads and 2 tails. And someone else said, yeah, that is a cool design, I bet Toho would agree and sue us. It does happen. All that being said, sometimes misdirection does happen. Basically, the closest we can come to a definitive answer here is a shrug. At the moment, I'm leaning towards it being a coincidence until such time as we get more evidence to say it's not. For now, I think we have to put this in the gray area. And that's just about all there is to say at this point. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.